I thought that I was streaming, and I wasn't streaming. I didn't select my streaming, and I thought I was streaming the whole time. So give me a break here for a sec. We're going to put the titles up again. And that's not our title. Okay, so I wasn't streaming. I thought I was streaming. I was recording, but I wasn't streaming. Thank goodness I got my stream up there, because otherwise it'd be like silly. Be sitting over here talking to nobody. We've been talking about doing twins methodology. Let's talk about what we're going to be doing here. But give me a sec. I'm a little disheveled only because I wasn't recording. I wasn't broadcasting, but I did something new. I'm really happy. Right before I got on here, I figured out something. Well, I'd actually done it before, but it's been a while, and I had no idea. I did it before, how I did it or anything. So we're gonna do a PowerPoint from my desktop. I'm so happy about this. But give me a sec, just because, like I said, I'm a little disheveled, only because I did this right before I got on. So I need un momento en español. ¿Sí? ¿Comprendo? ¿Comprenden? ¿Comprenden? Do you understand? I don't use any of the subjects in Spanish. They said you didn't have to use them in Spanish, and then I don't. And then I forgot them. What is the plural form of? So nosotros es we. En what? I'm not sure. Stop with your Espanol. Can we get on with the critical thinking? I was critically thinking about Espanol. Can I not do that? Sheesh. Give me a sec. Okay, let me talk to you a little bit about twin studies here. Now, one of the things I want to mention is that I don't know everything about them. What? What are you doing teaching it then if you don't know everything? Well, the thing is that a lot of the information has really been, as we talked about from the video, has been hidden from us. And I came upon more and more information about twin studies, and I do really believe that that's the reason why I'm suspended from Oakland University. I really do believe that it's because I've been talking very loudly about, and some of it is political for sure, but most of it is research oriented. I've been talking about and focusing on a lot of the faulty research that yeah, now I don't have a very good signal either. So thanks a lot, Xfinity. I pay nearly $100 a month, $92 a month. Just saw the bill. Can we not get a green signal over here? I'll wait for a moment. Boy, that's aggravating. But at least I'm recording. So if something happens to it, at least I have recorded. 7,600 dropped frames. Well, I do know that the Banditos are back. So the Frito Banditos are back bothering me again. They thought I would be gone Thursday, right, Tony? Oh, I'm sorry. You don't watch my videos, do you? Well, you might know a little bit more, like how I just do not have any respect for you anymore. So many Tonys, so many Davids, so many Michaels would make it very hard to keep track of all of them if I cared in the least about them. Make yourself known. Then I might. Make yourself known. All of this. Oh, I'm just getting really aggravated. 10,000 dropped frames. How about that? That's what we pay. And we know, I'm not going to get upset about it. I'm going to keep going. They don't want me to do that. That's what they don't want me to do. They don't want me to keep going. I've had all of my shows had excellent signals today, and then each one of them got interrupted, got disconnected with excellent signals. So it is what it is, right? You do what you got to do, and I'll do what I got to do. Critical thinking classroom. This is a high school level classroom, and sometimes you can see I get aggravated by things. We get aggravated. It happens, right? We don't blow off, right? We don't do that. We get aggravated. And then we do a little thing for us, whatever, right? We give people the big middle finger, whatever it is we got to do to get, a little bit less aggravated about things. Right now, 13,000 frames dropped, Xfinity. What's going on there? We can't keep a signal over here when we don't like what's being said. Is that what it is? Are we in the pockets of DJT? Is that what it is? What's the problem? 14,000 dropped frames. All of it is just to aggravate me and to make me look unprofessional. Okay. Moving on. So before I got on, I figured this out for you, and it is a little bit of a slideshow so that we can get started. Why am I talking about twin studies? I'm talking about them here in this classroom, and I'll be talking about them again in the philosophical classroom. In this classroom, as I've said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out the research for you, sort of all of the factual things that you might need in order to better understand what we've been doing. But also, as I started to say, remember, I don't know all of this either. And the problem with not knowing all of this for me is that, or for you, is that I am going to be presenting these things, some of these things as I figure them out. One of the things I wanted to figure out that is coming to me in sort of bits and pieces is, for Pete's sake, can we not get a better signal there? That is just unbelievable. Unbelievable. 15,000, 16,000, no, 20,000 dropped frames. How can that possibly be? Oh, it's so aggravating. I want you to watch how aggravated I'm getting by all this and what I do with the aggravation, right, Great signal all day today. And now we have a bunch of workers over there next door. All of this stuff has been, well, as I told you, police were here. Police were watching. They were doing it for the neighbors, as I said. They were watching for the neighbors. And they said they were watching me, but they were watching the neighbors. Then they told the neighbors, well, she's fine. She hasn't done anything. So the neighbors thought that the cops withdrew. The cops haven't withdrawn. And now they're continuing with the same thing that they've continued. So now they're continuing to collect data on those people who have dug their heels in, you know, about this whole thing, have dug their heels in about taking my job away, about taking my constitutional rights away, about wanting this property, and about disparaging my reputation. So 24,000 frames. I've got a red light over here. It's been red ever since I got on. So absolutely no signal coming here as soon as I got on with these twin studies. That's okay. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to stop streaming because it doesn't make any sense to continue to stream. My recording gets chopped up with these dropped frames. I'm going to continue to record, and then what I'll end up doing is I will put out a much better recording of this. So unfortunately, I can't do this live because they have disrupted my signal beyond belief. So I'm not going to do it live. No, I am going to do this live. Get your shit together, Xfinity. Get your effing shit together. You don't like what somebody's reporting out there, pay attention to what they're doing. Pay attention to what they're doing to the internet over here. Perfect signal all morning long. Then get on to talk about the twin studies and science, and what do? Like I said, I'm just going to keep recording. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. All right, now I'm going to see how I can do this. That's not it. Let's close that. Okay. Let me look here. All right, we've got it. I think we've got it. Let's just see. I mean, I know that it's not catching up over there. I'm just looking. I'm watching on YouTube to see what we've got going on there. Oh, of course. Excellent connection. And now is where they end up disconnecting me. 32,000 dropped frames. 33,000 dropped frames. Never, ever had so many dropped frames. Don't really like what I have to say. And you know what? As long as my picture's not up there, guess what? The audio comes through just fine. And also, I also know when people are getting on and off too. So what are genotypes and phenotypes? So what I want to do is, as I've said, I want to give you a little bit of background information, and I'm picking up information on these twin studies as I also am giving it to you. One of the things that I have come into a better understanding of, excuse me, and I haven't yet investigated is the different types of twin studies. And of course, this is unclear. It's unclear because, as I said, from my book, my personality book, I'm gonna bring it right here for you because I want you to see it, because her name is Marianne Miserandino. And she has written the best personality textbook that there is out there. And this is where I began to have a better understanding of what's going out there with the personality test, right? Hold on. I'll be right back. I'm getting Miserandino's textbook. And then there also is a lifespan development textbook. I should get that one as well, because these are the two textbooks that I've been using for the information. So here is the second edition of Marianne Miserandino. You can see her name down here. That was published by Kendall Publishing, is who published this. Pearson, I believe it was, published the first edition, which I don't have at my fingertips at this moment, but I'm surprised I don't. I'm not sure where it is. And so you can see I'm getting a lot of my data from Miserandino. The other place that I get my data, all right, let me stop right there. And so what I found out very early on is about ethics. A lot of times early on in psychology, that's what we'll talk about, right? We'll talk about ethics of that, the research done in that area. So ethics done in personality psychology. And so I've already said, these are the women that were in the video that we saw last Wednesday. We saw last Wednesday, right? On day 54. So watch those videos. But this came to my attention in the introduction. This is the introduction. And so very much about ethics. So here we've got the Tuskegee study that they're talking about, but here they're talking about the ethics of the twin studies. And in that, I found out about the studies that they have been doing on LSD, and that is what ended up happening to the Unabomber. So we have got a lot of medicine and psychology that is motivating individuals into a life of criminal life, which is based on the consequences of the trauma that has been inspired, the trauma that occurred because of these studies that they've been doing. And we are not waiting, Jewish Board of Child Development, until 2066 to open those up. I don't know what right you have to close those records. And so this is the problem. So what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to figure out who has the data and where did they come by this data, right? Most of the reports on twin studies are saying, hey, we got this data from Johnson. Hey, we got this data from here. And all of a sudden, the original sources of the data, the names on the original sources of the data are disappearing, and the methodology is sketchy at best. Okay? So, as I began more and more research on data collection at Oakland University and on these studies that have been psychological studies that have been done that are on, and to report these more and more, they've been limiting my hours at Oakland University more and more until they suspended me with no reason, right? So they haven't given me any verbal reasoning for it. And in fact, so arrogantly claimed that they don't have to give me a reason until after the mediation is done. How about that? How about that? How about not allowing somebody to make a living at their profession and then giving you no reason until after mediation is all done for it? I'm taking your university away from you. And Michigan State, adios to you too, because you are in with Big Ag, and you could have done something for the people, but you decided not to. You decided to do like every other university that is federally funded. And that changed in the 1980s, I believe it was, when we no longer had colleges, but all of the colleges except for, which college is it? I think it begins with an H. Is Hope College also still Hope College? Or is it Hope University? I'm not sure. So we have the Nuremberg Code, which allows us only to collect information in certain ways and protects individuals. We have institutional review boards that are supposed to protect individuals, and none of them do. They really don't care at all about protecting individuals' rights in the collection of research. So I'm trying to get a collection of those names of the twin studies. One of them is the Finn twin study. I know that. But then also getting my hands on the actual methodology. Did they really report the methodology? Because when you have thousands and thousands of twins, well, then every twin should know that they're being studied pretty much, right? Is that the case? Well, absolutely not to their knowledge, because as I've said, we've been splicing and dicing DNA for a very long time. We absolutely know we have twins. I don't even know if we have anything but twins. I could pretty much name my twin. I could name my sister's twin, which is none of the four of us, right? Probably I could. And all of this witchcraft that's going on around, that's exactly what it is. So they're getting you to believe in a witchcraft spirituality, but no spirituality that is tied to goodness. Think about that. Think about the manipulation that's going on. And as I've said, I mean, again, here I've got 60,000 dropped frames. It's just manipulation. It's just sinister, capitalistic manipulation of my medium, because you don't want to hear what I have to say. We'll get around it. We'll get around it. You guys are looking like the ass. You will continue looking like the ass. I promise you. So there's the background of it. So I'm going to get the information about all the twin studies that I can get my hands on. But again, that information is very vague. So that's another thing that they're doing with this. Oh, yeah, no problems with the whole throat thing. Then all of a sudden, you guys, if you look at Moses, they did those tricks there with, whatever, with vermin and snakes and things. You guys can do those tricks. You can do those tricks. You don't think they didn't look into them? Of course they looked into them. 64,000 dropped frames. So aggravating. All right, I'm going to get me off of there, because that is so aggravating. And I'll get our PowerPoint back up there, and then everything will be smooth. Oh, there it is. So now let me lay the foundation for you. I also said that a lot of this right here, the genotypes and phenotypes, I said are coming from another book. And that other book is my lifespan development book. Yeah, and of course now the cheap Chinese light is, because you can't pay good money for anything and expect that you get a good product anymore at all. So, yeah, all of this just has to do with all of the witchcraft that's going on around here, because the witchcraft only can work with flies and mice and apparently internet signals and electricity. Don't think there's not witchcraft going on here, and don't think they haven't figured it out, because they absolutely did. Okay. Swear to gosh, I'm going to throw that light across the room. The fact that I haven't shows that I have enormous self-control. Just letting you know. You already know that, though. Here is a lifespan development book that I have always used. This is by Cengage. So this information is from Cengage. The authors are Carol Siegelman and Elizabeth Ryder. It seems to me the books that I pick out that are the best books are textbooks, are authored, and I've never done that on purpose, are authored by women. My research methods by Beth Moreland. Excellent book. And when I put my comments out there that said it was an excellent book, you know what? Somebody took them down. This is such a male-oriented, male-driven world. We can't even give women their rightly due. And the same thing with this. I gave a great review for Marianne Mercerandino's book. Got taken down. So those are the two books that I've been using to get this information. And these are the ones that I teach from at Oakland University, where I got awards for teaching, and they don't care at all about their teachers, especially their female teachers, because they'd rather have those female teachers on their backs. Let's go. Okay, so what we have here is a picture of a genotype and a phenotype. So you can clearly see that the genotype looks like our DNA strands, and actually is DNA strands. But look at that genotype there. You can see that there are only certain bands that have that color on them, right? So certain bands have the color. Certain bands have DNA codes on them. But you can clearly see, and actually the majority of those DNA bands, right? Chromosomes is what we see there. Each one of them is a chromatid. And when we put them together, what we have are chromosomes. So you can see that we have coding on each chromatid, and it matches, right, the other chromatid. For our chromosome pairs is what we have, all right? So what we're talking about is, where do we get our genetic information from? Well, we have chromosomes that have DNA strands on them, or DNA on our chromosomes, but not all of the chromosome has DNA on it. This is important for us to know, all right? So we have chromatids and chromosomes that have DNA strands on them, DNA bands of information. We can see those color-coded bands there. So we have DNA information there, but not on the entire chromosome. So where our DNA information is carried on our chromosomes, but you can clearly see the entire chromosome is not carrying DNA information. And in fact, about only 3% of our chromosomes contain DNA information that is coded then into our phenotype here. What is our phenotype? Our phenotype is our outwardly expression of the genotype. So this, in this little picture here, the assumption is that the DNA strands, the information on the DNA is encoding a mouse. That's what this information is saying, right? The DNA is encoded for a mouse. The genotype encodes the physical features of who you are. So you have genes for your eye color. You have genes for the texture and curliness of your hair. You have genes for, how long your fingers are. You have genes encoded for disease in your body, right? How readily you are to get certain diseases. So we have all kinds of information that's on our genes that when it gets encoded, it turns into something different, very different than what it looks like, just exactly like computer code, right? Computer code has a bunch of I's and O's. It's basically what it's made of, on and off. This next connection is on, this next connection is off, right? On and off to give us code. That's exactly like the genotype, exactly like it. The computer gives us code, but the output is something that looks entirely different. The output we have here on the screen, right? On the screen, that's our output. Oh, look at you. Finally, after 78,000 dropped frames, you big jerks. Quit taking my money when you drop 78,000 frames. You should be ashamed of yourself. But there is no shame, clearly. Okay, so now look at the last thing at the bottom there that I say about gene expression. All right, look at the bottom there about what I say about gene expression. And you can see, what does it say? Genotype expression is the activation of a particular gene based on environmental factors such as diet, stress, toxins, and parenting. I'm going to read that again for you. Activation of a particular gene based on environmental factors such as diet, stress, toxins, and parenting. That is what genotype expression is. So I hope that you have some understanding of what I just read there, that your brain isn't waiting for me to explain it, but that you're trying to comprehend it yourself, what I just explained there, what I just said. We have genes waiting to be activated, waiting to be turned on, waiting to turn into what looks like a stripe there on a chromatid. We have genes that are waiting to look like one of those stripes on a chromatid, which then has a matching stripe on the other chromatid for genetic information on our chromosomes. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, okay? As we go along. So, and as we go along, we get a little more information that repeats the old information so that we generate new thoughts and new associations about that. So don't worry about it if you don't understand it completely yet. Although, not a bad idea to be taking notes in the classroom. Not a bad idea. It will really, really help you understand the information better because you're using more than one of our senses, right? Eyes, ears, touch, and then visual senses there, visual senses there. Where? On our paper with our writing, visual senses, all right? So not a bad idea if you're taking notes, but I will always get back to those complex thoughts that you're learning, right? I'll get back to those so that we'll hear them in a different way, a little bit late, at a different time. It sinks in then in a different way. And we'll hear it again in a different way at a different time. And it will sink in a different way. And now you'll begin to have a greater comprehension, better comprehension, basically, of the topic. Okay? All right, so we have genes, and those genes express themselves in our physical features. That's all phenotype is. Our genes express themselves, as we know, our DNA expresses themselves in our physical features. I'm telling you something you already know. I'm just giving you fancy names for them in order for us to be able to talk and understand a little bit more complex concepts. That's all. That's the reason why we have bigger names for them. So that we can understand something like genotype expression, which means that these bands, our genetic information is getting turned on and off. So let me give you an example of that, okay? An example would be if I have talent, an innate talent that I was born with to play music, but I never ended up, I'm thinking of another experiment right now. I never ended up getting exposed to music. What would end up happening? If I never got exposed to music, then what would happen is I wouldn't play music, and those genes to get turned on for music talent would never get turned on. But because I had a talent for it, I might actually make music with shells. I might actually be whistling a tune, right? So there are other ways, if I have that talent, that I might make music. But the complete expression of it can't occur because those genes were never turned on. Okay? And that goes, let's think about that for a lot of things. Let's think about genes that never got turned on. One of the experiments that I don't have here that I was thinking about, which I've talked about before, is the experiment where we have cats who were never exposed to color, only to horizontal lines or vertical lines. Now, what we find out from that information is that, I probably do have the picture of that. What we find out from that information is that we have got areas in our brain that readily pick up vertical lines, and readily pick up horizontal lines. They also readily pick up oblique lines. I'm pretty sure that's the right word. So on an angle, lines on an angle. And this is how we end up with some kind of image in our minds of something. We actually put it together using angles. So here, no angles, right? No angles, round, but angles. So our minds, our brains pick up these angles, and the lighting hits them in particular ways for our brain to be able to figure it out, right? Think about if you're laying on your back and you're looking at the clouds, and then all of a sudden the clouds take shape because the light is hitting it in certain ways and then activating memories that you have for that shape. Oh, it looks like Uncle Al, right? The same thing with these books, right? How do I know this is a book? How do I know? Well, the light is hitting the angles in particular ways. Yeah, nice job again. 85,000 dropped frames. 85,000 dropped frames. Nice job, Xfinity. So far, I haven't had a decent signal this entire time. What are you doing? What exactly? We already know. People are not doing their jobs at all. People aren't trained for their jobs. They don't do their jobs. And the powers that be, they don't train people at all so that we are just get used to being unhappy. All of this learned helplessness. It's very aggravating to see that. So I've got to stop looking at it. I know that you can hear my voice. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to keep going back to the PowerPoint, even though I know that it's my picture you want out of there because you just can't stand looking at me over and over and over again. Oh my gosh, it drives you crazy, doesn't it? I know it drives you crazy. I know I drive you crazy. I know I do. because that's just the way you work. Let's test your knowledge. I think I've got this working pretty well. I think so. So this will be kind of a little bit fun. So the most important reason that identical twins, these are true or false questions. The most important reason that identical twins are similar psychologically is that they are treated similarly. Treated similarly. These are not the same things as share the same events in their life, right? So by parents, by siblings, they're treated similarly. The most important reason that identical twins are similar and similar psychologically is that they are treated similarly. Do you think that statement is true, or do you think that statement is false? And that statement is false. False. In fact, our non-shared environments, our shared environments, this would be our shared environments. Our shared environments do contribute something to our personalities, but our shared environments actually contribute the least to our personalities. The environment that you share with your brother or sister actually contributes to your personality the least. So what contributes to your personality more so? If it's not your shared environment, the environment that you share with your brothers and sisters, with your parents, for example, if that's not the most important contribution to your personality, then what is? Well, think about it. What else do we have? We've got your DNA, which is what we're talking about. So obviously DNA would be a factor. But the other factor would be, if we have shared environments, we have non-shared environments as well. And the non-shared environments actually contribute about as much or more than DNA does to our personalities. So what's your non-shared environment? What's your non-shared environment? Your non-shared environment would be what you're doing with your buddies when you're not with your family. Is that a better indication of your personality? What you are doing with your buddies when you're not with your family, is that a better indication of your personality? Think about it. Think about it. The way that you act at the bar, the way that you act in your career, the way that you act in school, the way that you act when you're at a restaurant or at a sporting event. Is that somewhat different than who you are when you're with your family? Sure it is. Sure it is. I don't cuss when I'm with my family, but I do cuss otherwise, right? With my dad, right? I wouldn't cuss with my parents around. Now I do with my sisters, but in a family setting, you wouldn't likely hear me cuss in a family setting. Now I cuss a lot more openly than I used to because of all of this, because I have 100,000 dropped frames. Xfinity. I don't even know how you can collect my $100 with all of those dropped frames. As I said, it's shameful, but I don't think anyone experiences shame much anymore. Let's see what we got next, shall we? The father, not the mother, determines the sex of a child. Do you know this? This is some really good information. The father, not the mother, determines whether or not you have a boy or a girl. At least, before they started screwing with all of our DNA, this is the way that it used to work. The father, not the mother, determines the sex of the child. Is that true or is it false? And that, folks, is true. At about 5 months of age, if a boy is going to be a boy, those physical features start emerging. But the chromosomes for a woman are XX, and everyone is born with the X chromosome. It is the Y chromosome that has to be contributed by the male at conception. It's contributed by the male at conception that but even though it doesn't mature, right? So what we start with looks like a female. It doesn't mature into a male. So early on, you really can't determine the sex of a child. It would be difficult because the sex features don't come on board until later on. I'm just thinking about that as I'm saying that. How could they, they determine the sex of a child not by physically looking at it, likely. That's interesting, isn't it? Maybe I better look that up. Here's where I would look it up, right here. In my lifespan development book. And watch this. I am going to look it up because I know exactly where it's at. It's in chapter 3. See where I've gotten a lot of my pretty pictures from in our lifespan development book. It's not in chapter 3. It's in chapter 4. Okay, so here we have the development, the prenatal development. So here, this information right here is the prenatal development. So if you look here, these are weeks. So week number 3, the central nervous system develops. Week number 4, the eyes and legs develop. Week number 5, the heart and arms develop. Week number 6, the ear and teeth develop. Week number 7, the palate, the ear, and external genitalia begins to develop at week 8. So that is so what did I say? I said 5. Did I say 5 months? That wasn't right. It's interesting here. Well, those are born early. The percent of survival when individuals are born at 22 weeks, 23, 24, and 25 weeks in different countries. So their rate of survival. I'm looking to see exactly what they say. about exactly when, exactly when the sex of the child is determined, and I'm not finding it. Just because I'm just not finding it. Boy, I am just not finding it. They talk a lot about the harmful environmental components that can compromise our maturation here, but I'm not getting exactly those dates. But I'll find them. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm reading this right in front of you. Trying to find the answer to that question, especially since we're running out of time. Let's look at one more question, shall we? If a trait is highly influenced by genes, it is generally extremely hard for environmental forces to change it. If a trait is highly influenced by genes, it is extremely hard for environmental forces to change it. Is that true or is that false? Let me open that up again for you so we could see that a lot bigger. And the answer to that is false. If a trait is highly influenced by genes, it's not extremely hard to change it by the environment. We know this with height, for example, which we'll talk about sooner or later. Most important psychological traits like intelligence and extroversion are influenced by a single pair of genes. Most important psychological traits, the most important ones like intelligence or extroversion, are influenced by a single pair of genes. Is that true or is that false? What do you think? And that, of course, is false. All of our complex traits are influenced by many genes. We don't just have one gene for intelligence and it's turned on or turned off. There are many things that are incorporated into our knowledge. And so, in order for us to have a thorough understanding of concepts such as extroversion or intelligence, we certainly need to know more than the genes involved in those character traits. All right? All right, that's all that I have for now. This is Dr. Annette Feravich, and we will come back here and have a few more questions to test your knowledge and hopefully have a better signal from Xfinity so we're just not paying for something that's meaningless. Dr. Annette Feravich, I'm the teacher. Thanks for joining me in the Critical Thinking Classroom. We get to more, I'm able to get to a lot more information, although it doesn't really matter. We're taking this slow, but I'm able to get into a lot more information when I don't have 133 dropped frames. Xfinity, stop collecting my money when you can't do your job. And that is the theme, isn't it? Stop collecting our monies when none of you can do your job. Dr. Annette Feravich, I'm the teacher, and I'm a